3. Laurie Artiss is a name that's familiar to many people in the world of sport, particularly in Canada, but essentially because of his involvement with the pin business. But of course, as a baseball personality, as a baseball official, he has earned his way into the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame. And Laurie, I guess it really stems from your involvement as a coach, a manager, and administrator, essentially, that brought about your selection.
It sure was my batting average with the Rosedales back in those days, Bob. But yes, I was involved, as you have already indicated, in the coaching, managing, and then I guess I was president of Manitoba Minor Baseball Association, and then the Manitoba Senior Baseball League, which was primarily out in the Brandon and Western Manitoba area.
What about highlights? Basically, I suppose coaching a team to the Canadian Championship at the colt level and the pony level. Just what was involved in that?
Yeah, that was well. I guess first of all, I was fortunate when I was in. First of all, in Dauphin as athletic director, and then in Virden. And in Virden, we had a league around Hamiota and Crandall Decker and Pearson down in the south corner. And we had just a real good group of young kid ball players at 13, 14, 15. We really were blessed with particular pitching. And as you know, in any minor ball, pitching is going to determine an awful lot of your success. And we did manage to win the Canadian Pony League Championship. Now, I wasn't really involved with them when they went colt down to Davenport, Iowa. I went with them, but Murray Richardson, who had replaced me as athletic director in Virden, was actually the manager of that team. I got involved in Brandon in Little League and Pony League, and I did take a couple of teams down to Rapid City, South Dakota. We were within a game of going to the Pony League World Series, but we didn't quite make it.
Vince Lee, or Vince Leah, I guess to give him his proper terminology, organized Canada's first Little League back in 1950. And in the years that followed, you were involved within the city of Winnipeg at Riverview Community as part of that particular operation.
Yeah, Vince started Little League Baseball in Canada, and that he should be given a lot of credit for that. And he went out and got team sponsors, and we got uniforms. And really, in those days, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, there wasn't that many that were playing ball in uniforms. And I managed the Oakham Inn Blue Sox, was the team. And I think we won the league title and that. And then I lived in the Riverview area, and I did manage and coached there, and again, I think we won a couple of provincial championships, mainly due to again pitching. Kurt Grappentine was our outstanding pitcher, and I know Kurt continued on into senior ball here in Winnipeg and so on.
Let's fast forward to Brandon and your involvement with the Manitoba Senior Baseball League, certainly in a variety of capacities insofar as that.
Well, yeah, one time I was umpiring out there, and I, refereed hockey and baseball. And but then when the senior league started out there, and as I said, it was primarily a Western Manitoba organization, stimulated by the Brandon Cloverleys, who for 100 years almost have been a leading light in baseball in Western Manitoba. And then we had teams from Hamiota and Dauphin and Riverside and Souris, and then St. Lazare out in the western near the Saskatchewan border, and they were one team that brought in American imports to strengthen their team. Most of the teams in those days were pretty much local. Of course, this followed the era of the Mandak League, if you remember, Bob. It was in Winnipeg here, in Carman and Brandon. The Brandon Grays, was it?
Yes,
the Brandon Grays?
That's right.
But most of those teams, of course, were a lot of American imports. We didn't do that in the Manitoba Senior Baseball League, but we did try and run the league in a bit of a high fashion. We had The umpires were all league appointed. They weren't hometown umpires, and we had league statistics and stuff like that.
The creation of the Manitoba Minor Baseball Association, that's another claim to fame on your behalf. How did that come about?
Well, I think I can remember going in a car from Winnipeg. It was when I was living here, and we drove all the way to Dauphin. I think we got lost twice on the road, about 4 or 5 of us. Doug Cove was the president of our minor baseball in Winnipeg at that time, and we organized up in Dauphin the Manitoba Minor Baseball Association. Now, Doug was the first president, I believe. I might have been the second. I just can't recall. It's too long ago. But it went pretty well. It brought in all of Manitoba, and you know, and I met people like Hub Orchard of Miami, and people that were really devoted to kids' sport and baseball. I think. Well, I've now lived in all 4 Western provinces, Bob. I don't really think there's a province that quite compares to Manitoba for its love of baseball and its organization of baseball, particularly at the minor level, but even with seniors and so forth.
Out there in British Columbia, you still maintain an interest in baseball, I'm sure, as you enjoy your retirement years, and you keep on top of things, I'm sure.
Not just because we're talking baseball here in this interview, but baseball has almost always been my favorite sport. Yeah, I've been involved in hockey and, as you know, curling and so on. But from both a coaching standpoint and a spectator standpoint, I like baseball. The pauses in the game, you know, people sometimes say baseball's dull because, you know, between pitches and so on. But that's part of the game, is to learn something about the game. You know, if it's the bottom of the 9th inning and there's a runner on second and the guy drills a single in the center field, if you know baseball, you know that runner's going to be rounding third to try and score the winning run. You know the center fielder's going to be charging the ball to throw it to the plate. That's the sort of thing, the anticipation, that I find appealing about baseball.
Obviously, Laurie Artiss still feels a passion for the game of baseball. He's a very deserving member of the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame.